Round 2 of the Rochester Open is against my friend Daniel. He's done some videos on this YouTube channel. He's done a video recording of this same game if you want to check that out after this video. I'm playing the black pieces. He starts 1G3 and he has a 1G3 course coming out for ChessGoals. This is going to be a great marketing game for that course. I did not have anything prepared for G3, so I went with E5, C4, and now we get sort of a closed Sicilian in reverse. So E pawn up for black, C pawn up for white. Sicilian normally is E pawn for white, C pawn for black. So we kind of develop into this closed Sicilian setup. All of these are pretty natural moves. And Daniel goes for the quick D4 plan. So he put his pawn on E3. His plan is to play D4 and build a big center. D6, D4. We're looking at a slight edge for white, somewhere around 0.2. And white got the space out of the opening. Now, in hindsight here, I should have played E takes D4. And I did heavily consider this during the game. After E takes D, bishop G4, and even though white has this big center, I have counterplay. This knight is pinned on E2. I have my knight and bishop attacking D4. This knight could come to F5, also attacking that pawn on D4. This is pretty close to an equal game with a lot of play for both sides, even though the pawn structure is symmetric. I think I was looking to make the game more complex, but by trying to make it more complex, I actually struggled to have a good plan, and that's going to be the main takeaway from this game. I didn't have a good plan. H3. Now, at this point, really I need to take on E2, and after knight takes back, take on D4, play knight F5. Again, we're looking at that slight advantage for white. White does have the bishop pair, but there are weaknesses in white's position. I feel this is pretty close to balanced. Instead, I retreat the bishop, and now you can see that eval bar creeping up for white. White's got more space, and I don't have any counterplay. Queen C8. I'm poking at this pawn, queen and bishop lined up, and Daniel said after the game he wasn't sure why I went for this. It didn't really do much, and he's exactly right. King H2 simply defends the H-pawn. Knight F5, and one more time, E takes D was better. I did not play it, and Daniel takes advantage. Pawn D5. Now I'm stuck in a passive position. So at this point, what I need to do is look to play F5. I need to build up some space in the center before I just get steamrolled. So I'm trying to prevent C5 here by putting the B pawn up. And now I play H5, and I'm going to give this move a question mark. I was looking to play active, but this move is actually weakening my king side. It doesn't make sense to play for both H5 and F5, right? That makes this G6 pawn weak, exposes my king too much. So if I'm going to play for F5, I need to keep that H pawn back. I need to move this knight out of the way, like maybe bring it back to H6 even, and go for F5 next, or if I'm going to play defensive, I could put it on F6 and put the knight behind it. This move does not make much sense. After E4, now I go knight back to H6, F4, and you can just see this is such a fluid position by white. Daniel's doing a great job just grabbing the space, controlling the game, and I'm struggling here for a good plan. I play King H7. F takes E, bishop takes, and now knight F4. His knight finds a great square, poking at these pawns on my king side, and this was probably my best position in the game, but I have to find one critical move. So in this position, knight F4 isn't the strongest move. It is a little bit of a mistake, but human versus human perspective, it felt good because I couldn't find a good response. The best response is actually pawn to H4. And this was the whole reason I played H5, was to create this sort of counterplay, and for some reason, I didn't even consider this. G takes H, now queen D8, eyeing this pawn, and if queen F2 to defend it, now pawn to F5. The game's pretty balanced all of a sudden. I'm fighting back. But I did not think of this during the game. Instead, I play queen to D8, and after knight to D3, this knight is really well placed, attacking the bishop, guarding this, still could come out to F4, could go to B4, just controlling all of these dark squares which does a nice job complementing these pawns on the light squares. And now e5. So here comes the pawns. He's breaking through in the center. And this is a good takeaway for me. I'm trying to work on appreciating exchange sacrifices. This is something you can learn from in your own games. After every game, have some takeaways, some things to work on. I've noticed a trend in my games where I tend to underappreciate the exchange sacrifice. I value the rook too much compared to a minor piece. Here, the best move is d takes e, sacrificing the exchange. After bishop takes, queen takes, I do have a pawn for the exchange, and now all of a sudden my pieces are starting to come back to life at just the cost of the exchange sack for a pawn. So that's one of the takeaways from this game. Got to appreciate those exchange sacrifices. I play knight f5. Question mark. No good plan here. Rook e1. Every white piece is becoming a strong piece. They're all well placed. White also has the big center. This is just a great game so far by white. Bishop h6 poking at the queen. Queen moves. And e6 is coming soon. So I retreat. Bishop e4, and now bishop takes f5 is a threat, with the queen ready to recapture after my pawn takes. This is not a fun position at all. I retreat. g4. Strong attacking move, opening up this pawn. The g pawn is pinned. So now I decide to sack. There goes my h pawn. Everything's poorly placed. Now I play d takes e5. Queen takes c5. And f5. Now, at this point, I did feel I was getting a little bit of counterplay. So I played a lot of blitz in preparation for this event. And one thing that blitz helps you train is how to find attacking moves, how to play for the initiative. And quite often in my blitz games, I'm fighting from behind. So it's sort of natural for me to find these types of plans. I deflected his queen out here in order to get this big center, and I'm okay with being down a pawn. H takes g. Bishop takes, he retreats, and now e4, and this is actually starting to work. But right here, I messed up, and I played bishop to f7, and I sort of didn't appreciate the sacrifices on these pawns, the fact that something can take here soon. What I should have played is queen d6, gone into this endgame, but it's an endgame with some fighting chances, because I do have the connect pass pawns. So I retreat. Knight came out, and this is a mistake. Things are getting a little bit sloppy. Both sides are missing chances. I make a mistake with c6, but knight to g6 is very strong. After take, take, queen takes, I can drop the bishop back, and again, this endgame gives me good chances. It's pretty much balanced. Either side could win this. But I make this mistake. c6. After d takes c, queen to d2, I'm now double attacking this knight. But rook to d1 is actually a really strong move, and we both missed this. The idea is after bishop takes, the king can simply duck away, and there's no good squares for the queen, and this bishop is hanging, and this king is exposed. But Daniel blunders, queen f2. So I'm doing a good job creating some chances. I'm getting a sloppy game, but now I just need to play more accurately with the tactics. I trade queens, which is the good decision. Back to equal. Knight takes c6. Not the best move. Surprisingly, rook a to d8 is the best way to keep the position equal. Allowing pawn to c7. It looks weird. It still doesn't completely make sense to me, but it looks like the idea is rook to d2. We still have rook and knight guarding this, and we're getting this activity on the dark squares. So I take c6, knight to d6. And now I just missed the sacrifices here. What I need to play is bishop takes f4, rook takes, and bishop g6, which is just tough to play defensive like that. But instead I drop back, and there's a very obvious knight takes e4. We were both low on time. Daniel takes on f5 instead. And now this game is essentially over. I played a couple more moves, trying to hold on. But these tactics are going to peter out in white's favor, and here I resigned. So takeaways, I need to have a more decisive plan out of the opening. When I don't have plans, I don't play well. I also need to not value the material so much. Keep working on that. Both the exchange sacrifice and just being down a pawn and kind of trading queens later on. And also work on tactics. There were a lot of missed chances in that endgame, but I think I did a good job creating some chances later on from a really bad position. So got to show the wins and the losses. This was a tough loss, but hope you guys found some constructive feedback you can implement in your own games as well. So see you in round number 3.